Hey there, Starseeds! Welcome to Beyond the Cosmic Table. We're a group of friends from different cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs. We gather around our table and initiate honest and open conversations on how energy and frequencies influence what we create around us. By expanding awareness, we're able to journey with practical guidance, leading to our highest awareness and conscious living. So, take a seat and join us at our table. Welcome back to another intro episode. This time, I sit with Colleen as she shares about her spiritual awakening, which includes some really cool stories about two people she was very close with and her experience with their transition to the other side. Also, her aspiration to help guide others in the beginning path of their spiritual awakening journey.
Hey, Colleen, as you know, we're all getting together and introducing ourselves to our listeners and letting them know how we wound up at the cosmic table. So I just wanted to talk to you and hear your story. So how did you end up here?
Well, first, I want to set the tone here on a positive note and just say, you have the best voice for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, this is so cool. But so everybody at the cosmic table comes with a story and history, as everyone really does. But my connection is through Jamie. Jamie was a speech language pathologist. At the time, I was a speech language pathologist assistant. So I had graduated college. I spent a year working as an assistant, and that year she was starting her career as an SLP. And so I was her assistant. That was 20 something years ago, which is crazy to say, but she was just one of those people, that you meet and there's this instant connection. And we had the SLP thing in common, but then we both really had a strong interest in metaphysics. And we just became thick as thieves and have been since that time. And I mean, it is fascinating to see, to both have this interest and see where we were in our lives at that time. And then all of these conversations and things that you learn along the way and seeing how life has changed and evolved, and sometimes it looks like it's not evolving and it looks like you're going backwards, but then you realize, wow, I really needed to go through that so I could shoot forward. It's just been such a fascinating journey. So my connection is Jamie.
Well, that's a great connection. I just wanted to ask you really quick. So you said that you guys connected with metaphysics back then. So were you into that prior to meeting her?
Yeah. So I think I was born interested in metaphysics, astrology, always very interested in philosophy. And throughout my childhood, I remember many synchronicities, things that some people would call coincidences, we refer to as synchronicities. Just even as a kid remembering that. And also, I've recently paired some fears that I had as a kid at night and stuff like that I believe were some past life things, or maybe I was hearing some things that were actually happening and I thought it was just something I was making up. So I've always had this interest, and some people would say that's the Sagittarius in me, and it might be, but yes, a lifelong learner. I remember an event in 4th grade very vividly. I went to Catholic school, and I remember a friend of mine very innocently asking the teacher, well, what if you don't believe in God? And it struck me. I will never forget that moment. The teacher yelled at the student. She did not approve of that question. And in my 4th grader mind, I remember thinking, that seems like that was more of an opportunity to explain as opposed to, scold her for asking that question. And I tell you, that was the moment that turned on my why.
Wow.
Why? Yeah, and then another pivotal moment was in college. I took a world religion class. That was one of the most fascinating classes for me that I've ever taken. The takeaway from that class was that, most religions share the same foundation. Their beliefs are so similar, and really the differences among most religions are the rules. And so spirituality versus religion became very clear to me at that time, and I just wanted to know more. Then I started to have my own personal experiences. You read about these things in books, people with near death experiences and whatnot. I had gone to Costa Rica. I think I was 26 years old by myself. Had a couple very interesting experiences there, which might be another podcast for another day. I definitely believe I had a Kundalini experience there. Now that I know what that is, looking back, that was just a magical time. So my own personal experiences, and then experiences with people that I was close to that have passed away. There was one boy, Alex in particular, who really is very pivotal in my whole spiritual journey. He was 13 years old when I began working with him in his home. My background is special education. I'm a speech language pathologist. So I started working with him to learn Logos therapy and just get that experience to put on my resume. He was 13. I was in college. When he was 22, we had been working with each other that whole time. We had this very uncanny bond. He was significantly involved with pervasive developmental disorder, otherwise known as the autism spectrum. Many people would have described him as hard to work with, but we got along so well. There was something, I can't even describe what that bond was. Like, he was my friend, but he was also like my child that I cared about and protected, and just a connection that you wouldn't expect. And so when he was 22, he unexpectedly died from a seizure. His mother, who was his biggest advocate, was always working with a psychiatrist to try to find something that would help calm him, help with his behavior management. And so they tried a new medication, and it triggered a seizure, and he died from that. And it's kind of fascinating. It was the day of my bachelorette party that I got the call from his mom that he had died. And then his funeral was actually on my birthday. And I don't, somebody somewhere is going to think that means something. I don't know what it means other than we were really connected. But the day that his mom had called me, it was maybe an hour or so later. I was sitting on the bed, putting socks on. And as I sat back up, there was this rush, this intense energy that I had never felt before. And I couldn't see him, but every other sense that I have in my body knew that it was Alex. And I just remember saying, Alex, you have got to go be with your mom right now. She is so sad. And as soon as I said it, that energy was gone. And several times, Alex has made many reappearances. I don't, to this day, I don't really know why we were so connected, but we just are. And Jamie was pivotal in helping me. She connected me to Paul and Sue, who are our friends that teach a spirit communication class. And they were the ones that were able to really tell me that confirm that it was him, and tell me what his messages were, and, that he was okay. And, I was listening to the podcast that you did with Diane, and Diane had mentioned that you're not supposed to interpret the messages, and sometimes you get messages that make absolutely no sense. So a really interesting story involving Alex. This must have been 6 months to a year after he had died. And Sue called me out of the blue. It was a weekday. We don't usually talk during the day, especially not on the phone. And she said that she had an urgent message from Alex and it needed to get to his mom. And I was like, nobody knows this part of me. Nobody knows that I have these conversations. Alex's mom was one of the most religious people that I've ever known in my life.
Oh boy.
And yeah. And Sue was like, it's not your job. She's like, this isn't a question of should you. This is a question of this message needs to get to her. So I called his mom and I asked her to meet me for dinner.
Well, yeah, that's a good idea. Not over the phone. This is a dinner conversation.
Yeah. But she was going to be heading out of town. She's from Chile, as she pronounces it. And she was going to go visit her mom within the next day or so. So it had to be soon. So we got together. I'm like, she's going to call the insane police. Because this message that they passed along was so weird and convoluted and seemed so dark to me. But I'm like, I have to take myself out of this. This is not about me. For whatever reason, this is what I'm being guided to do. We had the greatest conversation. I shared the message with her, and I tell you, it made perfect sense to her. And she was so grateful to have received that. And to explain what the message was still, to me, sounds so weird, but to her, it was, she had a child with special needs. And I work in special education, so I know that one of the biggest fears of parents of children with special needs is what's going to happen to their child if they die first. So she shared with me that she had prayed Alex's whole life that he would die before she did, so he wouldn't have to be alone. But he died way sooner than she ever expected. And she had such guilt. She thought she brought that on by praying for that to happen. And so she had been afraid to fly to Chile to see her mom because she had convinced herself that she was going to die. That the plane was going to crash. Because now that Alex died, now she thought like, wow, I made that happen. Now I'm going to die. And I have 3 other children. So, I mean, how about that?
Wow.
That is such, that's my own personal story. I did not read that in a book. I could not have made that up. I'm a very creative, imaginative person, but I could not have made that up.
Well, can I ask a quick question? So the message that Alex had for her, did it have something to do with her holding on to that guilt, thinking that she was responsible for his death?
Yeah, it was to let go of that. And we had to get together soon because she was going to get on a plane to go to Chile. And so this was to help her relieve her fears.
I see. Okay.
So the timing of it was also just so divine. For someone like her who is so religious to confirm that that was absolutely what she needed to hear in that moment. And she and I had many follow-up conversations, and she had gone to her priest. I've also talked to priests. In my experience in the conversations that I've had, there is absolute confirmation that they're very well aware. Spirit and the ability to communicate with spirit. There's so many layers. It's fascinating. That's why I just can't stop talking about it, learning about it. It's just fascinating to me.
It really is.
It is. I could go on, but I get so excited. I don't.
We could just sit here and talk all day and night about our stories through the years, you know?
Yes, no, that's why Thursdays are just so great. When everybody has to say. It never gets boring.
That story about Alex, that's insane. So that was a while ago, right? That would have been how long ago?
Probably almost 13 years ago. Since then, there's been so much more.
More. Something, weren't you going to share about your dad too?
Oh, yeah. My dad is a whole another story. You know, again, it's my personal experience. I didn't read it in a book, but these experiences match up really well with the other stories that you do hear. So, long story short, my dad had been in not good health for a long time. And the last year of his life, he was pretty much in and out of the hospital that whole year, or rehab facility. Towards the end, he had a major surgery and he was in intensive care. And I was sitting there with him, and I know he was heavily drugged. Okay, I get that. But he told me there was a blue person sitting on the counter, and I didn't know about blue people at the time, but like the next week, it was very short, the time frame of that experience, him saying that, and I was sitting there really looking like, I really want to see what you are seeing right now. I was trying so hard. I couldn't see it. And then Abby starts talking about blue people like the next week or something. And I'm like, what are these blue people? And so that was interesting, but something less supernatural, I suppose, is there was a night. So we know his health is not good. Things are not looking good. He was very heavily medicated, not conscious, mostly because of medically induced things going on. And I went to visit him, and I felt compelled to just stay. And so I was sitting in the room where he was, in the recliner, and he hadn't talked for quite some time. And around 11 o'clock or so that night, he spoke, and he said, Colleen, is that you? And I was like, yeah, I'm here. Do you need something? Are you okay? And he went back to sleep, but it was like he was relieved that someone was there. And the fact that he knew it was me, I was very touched, but also just kind of intrigued. And then shortly after that, maybe an hour or two later, all of his stats like crashed. And I had this reaction of just sitting there, and, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, let him be in peace. The nurses come running in, they get him stabilized. The doctor comes in, and they had called my mom. My mom comes. So the two of us are in the room. The doctor is explaining he either needs to have this surgery. They think his colon collapsed. So he either needs to have the surgery, which they didn't think he was going to survive, or he was going to be referred to hospice. So we had to make that decision quickly. And my mom and I were standing there. Now it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were on each side of him, both holding his hand. And again, he starts talking, and he goes, ha ha, I'm not in my body anymore. And my mom was there to witness this. And I said, Dad, are you outside your body? Are you floating around? And he's like, I'm not in my body anymore.
Oh my God.
And then the nurse comes in, and he said it to the nurse. He goes, I'm not in my body anymore. And the nurse goes, oh, Mr. Sharkey, of course you're right here. And he didn't say it again after that. And then that was it. He was in hospice and hadn't been conscious again after that. I feel like that was my gift in his death experience. I was so honored to be there and get to experience that. And with the spirit communication class and other people that I have known that have passed on, I've heard stories like that. And for me, it was my experience. I witnessed it with my own eyes, my ears. So for me, it's true. But I think with all of this spirit and energy and metaphysics, a lot of times it's like people have to have an experience to get them interested or on board or thinking about this. As you know, I think a lot of times, unfortunately, it's the dark night of the soul knocks on your door and says, hey, the universe is trying to talk to you.
Yep. Shows up differently for everyone. Well, that's a really cool story about your dad. And to have that happen with somebody, you know, so important in your life. And it's like that confirmation that, you know, he is there even when he's not in his body. And he told you so.
Yeah, I know. And the other part of that is there was so much joy in that moment. My mom and I were both like, we're so happy for you. If we it sounds a little cheesy, corny, but we were like, I was like, Dad, do you see a light? Go to the light. Go, Caroline, go. Go to the light. But really, it was so joyful. Like we were so excited, like he was winning some big championship. And that just came out very naturally.
That's very cool.
Yes. That has helped me erase any fears of death because I truly believe there's a party waiting for you in the next dimension that you are traveling on to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all good.
Yes. Where do you go with all this? Like okay, so when I first joined the table 2.5 years ago, I think you came once or twice. It was really difficult for you to attend Abby's house on Thursdays because of your kids and you live kind of far away. So I'd only met you a couple of times and I think we went out once or twice, like out for drinks with Jamie. So it didn't have the opportunity to really get to know you and connect with you until COVID happened and we went on Zoom, which blessing because you're so awesome. But like when did you quote unquote join the table? When would you say you officially joined? Would you say when we went virtual or?
Yeah, I think officially. Jamie has always invited me to come and I was so super interested, but I also I wanted her to have her space and have her thing and not always glom on to everything. And I had gotten to know Abby several times prior to joining the table. And like you said, meeting some of you individually throughout the years. And then, divorce was a blessing. I wound up getting Thursday nights free. Yeah, the universe works in mysterious ways. So yeah, I think once COVID started, it just became really easy to show up. And so you moved to Arizona and now I spend so much more time with you.
We lived within probably 45 minutes of each other back then. And now I'm 1,800 miles away from you. I see you now more than I ever did.
I know. That's so funny. And I think we have a lot in common.
Oh, we totally do.
Yeah. Outside of the metaphysical stuff.
Yes. Where do you see yourself going with this? What you've been doing a lot of inner work. Like you're always posting in our group about these meditations, these amazing experiences that you're having and these meditations that you're doing that Jamie has provided us, which is awesome. Yeah. Where do you see yourself going with all of this?
Well, I think for me, I've been so fortunate to have people like Jamie and Abby, Diane, and I mentioned our friends Paul and Sue and other people that I know that have just really honed their skill, tapped into their talents, and they were there to give me clarity, answer questions. I could rely on them and I didn't have to do the work myself. And so I think it came to a point where it was time for me to start, because I know that I am very intuitive. I know that I'm gifted in this area as well, but I've been lazy letting other people do the work. And I feel like it's time to pull it together and make it work for me in my life. And I know that when I do, fascinating things happen. So I need to get committed to, creating my best life. My oldest daughter is starting to get interested in these topics, and that's really inspiring me too. Helping her learn. In my career, in my day job, I'm a speech language pathologist, and my passion has been working on social emotional learning. And my concept of that might be different from the traditional model being taught in the schools right now. But I love talking and teaching, and I teach an adult class too to staff in our district, and they get graduate credit for it. I love teaching the mind-body connection, how much your thoughts impact your health. And there's so much research out there. There's something called the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experience Study, and it actually started as a study in obesity, and it led to finding that stress from your childhood comes out later as an adult and impacts you in so many ways. And without intervention, without clearing that garbage out of your system, it's inevitable that you'll have health issues. You might have mental health issues, physical health issues. There's so much you can do to stop that from happening. And so being a speech language pathologist, communication, what you say to yourself is so important. But this totally ties in to everything that we talk about at the Cosmic Table. It all starts with your thoughts. And the thing that I have learned recently, okay, so most of this stuff, I've been interested in this for so long, and I have cognitively understood it. But there are some big things that within this past year, I now know. And there's a really big difference between understanding and knowing. I feel like when you know something, it's integrated in you on a physical level. This whole idea of the present is the only moment. I've heard that. I've understood that. But now I can apply it. Now I am looking at my past. Anything that's painful, getting divorced, that's no fun. It's not fun for anybody. I don't care how amicable you are. There's going to be some pain.
Oh, yeah.
And so to retrain my brain to when a memory of that comes in, to switch it and reframe it to, I'm so grateful that there was a time I felt in love and secure. I'm not going to allow the negative thought which brings a negative feeling in. And the most important learning, I think is so pivotal, is that understanding and knowing that when you have a memory, your mind knows it's a memory, but your body does not. Body is reliving those feelings, and your mind sends out, we're boomerangs, we're magnets. Your mind sends the thought out, and your feelings, your body is the magnet that brings it back in. But when you've got negative stuff, you're repelling the positive, or however it works, but you're not letting that desire in. You got to get the crap out of the way. That's why Jamie's alchemy class is the most important thing somebody can do for themselves. Really. I love the idea of us all working together because it all flows. You got to understand the emotions. You need to know what needs to get out of your system. You need to know how to replace the thoughts. And you have to take the steps and the time to go through each chakra and do the work and do the clearing. There's a lot that you have to understand before you can really do that.
That's why I feel this podcast will be so helpful, for beginner starseeds, which I consider myself like, I just found out I was a starseed a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago. Prior to that, I didn't even know what that was. But for people, I'm just starting that work. I call it, shadow work or inner child work. It can be labeled so many different things, and there's so many different ways to do it. But the important part of it is to do it. But it's a lot of work, time consuming, and it's ongoing. It's not like you do the work and then there's an endpoint. There's layers upon layers. It's for the rest of your life.
And sometimes it gets overwhelming and you need a break. Sometimes you just gotta stop.
Yeah. My whole weekend, it was intense. And then finally I'm like, I'm taking time off. I don't know why I thought a whole weekend was a good idea, but man, it's going to be really exciting to see where our group goes from here. I know we have a lot of envisions for what we're all doing individually and as a group. We're so different today than we were even just 2 years ago.
And yeah, looking back, it really is remarkable. All of the growth, the changes, the stories. I thought I had wanted to work with adults. That's really where, and I work with teenagers right now and adults with disabilities. I thought I had wanted to get more into corporate America and work on the whole SEL type of work, promoting positive thinking, almost like Brene Brown, her kind of work, and how can you use your thoughts to improve relationships with coworkers and so on and so forth, which would benefit your productivity and blah, blah, blah. But I think 2020, I was not impressed by a lot of adults. And I thought, I don't know, I think sticking with the teenagers, the young people who are deciding what kind of person they want to be, and their brains are malleable and they have the choice. I think that's where the power is. And I think that's where my gift is. I think I'm pretty good at explaining at an introductory level this kind of information. Like you said with starseeds, there's still stuff that I'm still learning about. And sometimes Thursday nights, I just sit there and nod my head like, yeah, sure. I don't know what you're saying. And it's like another language sometimes. Yeah. So I definitely have a lot to learn, but I can help out with the beginners. Where my superpower is. So there will be more to come with that in the near future. Opportunities for beginners, people that they're interested, like we were all interested. And things like Jamie's class, I always say it's so great. It's the best thing you can do, but it's not for beginners, so where do you begin then? So we gotta help people get started.
Yep, I think there's definitely a need for it, for sure. Well, this was really great. More fun episodes to come.
Yes. Thanks, Kim.
Another great conversation. So much going on with our tribe. I love it. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. If you're enjoying our individual stories so far, just wait until we're all around the table. It's gonna get interesting. Those episodes are coming at you soon. Don't forget to subscribe so you're notified, and please leave us a comment about what you think so far. And of course, follow us on Instagram at Beyond the Cosmic Table, and share with any of your friends that you think may enjoy this content. Okay, tune in tomorrow where another tribe member will be introduced. Until then, namaste.